Today, a barrage of Russian missiles raining down on Kyiv, Ukraine. Russia, showing no mercy, launched 18 cruise missiles and an unknown number of drones at Kyiv and the areas that surround the city. Ukraine's air defense, scrambling to defend the city, was able to shoot down 15 of the 18 cruise missiles. So far, 34 civilians reported as wounded, no civilian casualties reported, and many homes decimated. This is the second strike since Friday. On Friday, Russia did kill at least 25 Ukrainian civilians in a large-scale missile strike. Late last week, Western allies sent new and powerful weapons to Ukraine. These weapons are to help Ukraine ready themselves for their soon-to-be launched counteroffensive. Earlier, I spoke with National Security Council Strategic Communications Coordinator, Admiral John Kirby. Admiral, thank you very much for joining me, sir.
You betcha. Good to be with you, Greta.
Is there a way, sir, to determine or to estimate how many people, civilians, military, that the Russians and the Ukrainians have lost or have been killed since this war began?
I think there are estimates out there. Certainly, we do the best we can to sort of to try to understand the conditions on the ground and the order of battle, as it were. If you're referring to numbers, I think in general, though, as we said today, since just December, in the fighting in the Donbass, particularly around a little town called Bakhmut, the Russians have suffered 100,000 casualties, over 20,000 killed in action, and of that 20,000, and again, this is just since December, and just in the Donbass area, about half of that 20,000 we estimate were Wagner employees, mercenaries, mostly convicts that Mr. Prigozhin went and let out of prison to go throw them at the fight at Bakhmut.
Is there any indication that Putin cares? I mean, you tell me these numbers, they're staggering. We show pictures of the place mowed down. I've been over to the region now 4 times, but is there any indication that Putin even cares?
I think there's absolutely zero indication that Mr. Putin cares about the Russian and or the Ukrainian lives that he has thrown away over the course of this now more than a year's worth of fighting. And he knows that other people care about it, because he tries to conceal the manner in which he is restoring his manpower and his units on the battlefield, trying to replenish the manpower. This is why he's got Mr. Prigozhin involved in Bakhmut, because he needs the support. And this is why Mr. Prigozhin is going to prisons and emptying out hospitals of people that are wounded and put them back in the fight, because they're doing everything they can to try to conceal the fact that they're not doing well, and they continue to just throw human flesh at this fighting.
The Russian press is obviously state-owned, state-controlled. So the only thing the Russian citizens hear is, all the horrible things about the Ukrainians and how Russians are great, just to sort of short-circuit that discussion. So are our sanctions on Russia impinging on them at all? Because that might bring the citizens to sort of want to take another look at this.
We certainly know that the export controls and the sanctions that we put in place, particularly on his defense industry, has absolutely impinged his ability to produce war material, particularly, for instance, cruise missiles that need a lot of microelectronics that he can't get his hands on, which is why he's going to Iran to buy hundreds of drones, and why they tried to conceal that for a while, until it was so patently obvious that they were using Iranian drones to kill innocent Ukrainians and to hit infrastructure. It's why he's reaching out to or Mr. Prigozhin, at the very least, reaching out to North Korea for artillery shells, and why Putin wants to continue to reach out to President Xi, because he wants that kind of support to backstop his military capabilities, which he knows are hurting now, in large part because of the sanctions and export controls. And Greta, it's not just the sanctions that we've put on Russia; it's the sanctions that so much around the rest of the world, so many nations around the rest of the world have.
We talk about our geopolitical foes, Iran, North Korea, and China, as aiding in their war effort. But there were also reports that Egypt, our ally, was transferring some sort of weapons to them. I don't know if the report's true or not, but are our allies also helping Russia?
Now, that particular report was not borne out by the facts. We've seen no indication that President el-Sisi is going to be assisting with lethal capabilities to the Russian army. We just haven't seen that happen. We are in touch with countries all around the world. You talked about our allies. Some 50 nations have continued to provide non-lethal and lethal support to Ukraine over the course of this year. Secretary Austin over at the Pentagon holds a contact group. He just did one week and a half ago over in Germany. More than 50 nations participate each and every time, and each of them are doing what they can to help Ukraine. There really has, to your question, I mean, there really has been, with a few exceptions to be sure, a real global coalescence around trying to support Ukraine in this war.
Was this, though, a fight to the bitter end, or is there any sort of path to peace in any way? I mean, is the United States engaged in any discussions with both Putin and Zelensky? Because, you know, I certainly know that President Xi was over in Moscow about 6 weeks ago, and they had an hour-long conversation with Zelensky recently. So it seems like at least that he may be trying to mediate something. Are we participating, or is there a path to settlement?
Well, look, this war could end today if Mr. Putin would just pull his troops out. Obviously, that's not going to happen. He just spent time over the weekend shelling and sending cruise missiles in at more cities across the country. What we support is a just peace in accordance with President Zelensky's proposal that he has put forth. It has to be, if there is going to be a negotiation, it has to be one that President Zelensky feels comfortable participating in, and only under the conditions in which he's willing to talk and to sit and to negotiate. Look, if Russia would stop fighting this war, the war ends. If Ukraine stops fighting right now, Ukraine ends. So we've got to continue to do everything we can to help them succeed on the battlefield so that if and when President Zelensky is ready to sit down and negotiate, he can do so from a position of strength. He can do so with some wind at his back. But we all want this war to end. Again, it could end today if Mr. Putin would do the right thing. Short of that, we want it to end as soon as possible. But it has to end on terms that are acceptable to President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people.
All right, turning to Sudan, they're fighting there. The two generals are fighting there, and it's getting so vicious. I know that there was a ceasefire, another ceasefire on Sunday, but it's like a sieve. These ceasefires, they're still shooting and killing and hurting each other. You know, I realize this is not our war, not our problem, but we've had to get Americans out of there. We've had to evacuate our embassy. But what's the path going forward, do you think, for Sudan right now?
The first priority, and you hit it right on the head, is getting these two generals to put down their arms, stop fighting, so that humanitarian assistance can get in food, water, medicine that are in great need in Khartoum in particular. Get that humanitarian assistance in, get these two generals to sit down at the table and start to talk about a more peaceful future for Sudan, a transition to civilian authority, which is what the Sudanese people want. It's what we want for them. We want to get our diplomats back in that embassy so that they can help affect that kind of outcome. We have been brokering these ceasefires. We and the Saudis have been brokering these ceasefire extensions. Looks like we got another extension in place, but you're right. It's not absolute. There's still fighting. There's still violence. The situation is still dangerous. People are still being killed. So we've got to focus on that. But eventually, over time, what we want to see is that transition to civilian authority, which the Sudanese people said they wanted, which they voted for, and which these generals have pledged in various forms to want to support. We want to make sure that they're actually doing that.
And what a disappointment after getting rid of Bashir, who was a dictator for about 30 years, then bringing in those two generals who are supposed to have a shared power to create a democracy. It seems like the country was so close until this happened. Yeah. And now I just don't see. I mean, now it's a fight to the bitter end for those two.
Well, we hope that it's not, Greta, and there's no reason for it to be, as you put it very bluntly, a fight to the bitter end. We think that there's still room here. We've got these ceasefires extended, and yes, there's been violations of them, but in many ways the violence has decreased. So that's a positive sign. We want to see that continue and get these two to stop fighting so that they can start talking, so that we can move towards that transition to civilian authority. But you're right; it's very disappointing to see this. It's tragic for the people of Sudan. Obviously, it's forced now thousands of foreign nationals to flee the country. None of it is good for Sudan as a country, as a nation, as a people. None of it. And we're gonna stay diplomatically engaged. Like I said, we want to get that embassy back up and running just as soon as it's safe to do so.
Well, the ones who flee are the lucky ones. I heard there's no water in Sudan right now, so we're going into that stage of a terrible humanitarian crisis. Admiral, thank you very much for joining me, sir. I hope you come back. There's a lot to talk about. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Good to be with you.